Hey guys, just wanted to bring to light an issue that I know that this is old news to some, but to me it's fresh. Um, I wanted to discuss the whole thing with Senator. I live in Canada, Winnipeg, Canada, and I and if you guys Google this, I would definitely pursue you guys to Google this and look it up because it is an issue that faced that the whole issue was just ridiculous. Anyway, there's a senator in Canada named Senator Beck. I don't remember her first name, but she apparently went to a bunch of indigenous reserves, and she said a lot of the chiefs have. This is what I've read about it. A lot of our chiefs have from INAC have assimilated into mainstream culture, and that if First Nations give up, like First Nations, like Indigenous people, Métis people, um, I'm not sure if anyone gets that. I don't know. Anyway, if Native people give up their status cards, their Indian status cards, they can apply for Canadian citizenship and get a payout. First of all, I can't tell you how racist that is. I was born here. I have a Canadian birth certificate, and I have my Indian status card. Now, the historical context of a status card in Canada, I'm not sure if it's the same with the States, but it is basically when they were first enacted by the government. This was around the time that the British Crown was starting to sign treaties with the native peoples. And a status card was to signify historically that if you had one, you were still considered primitive, no education, didn't speak English, didn't follow their religious ways, but you were still a, a, a heathen Indian, is what they would put it. It's even in the Indian Act. I've read it. And natives have assimilated to a certain point. Yes, it's true. We live in the cities, we live on reserves, we use technology, we live in a modern way, most of us. I cannot say the same for the people who live on all the reserves. I don't know what they're like. I have only been to mine. Mine's okay. But I find it incredibly racist and offensive that this senator of Canada, I don't remember what kind of senator he is, but said that I could give up my status card basically and become a Canadian citizen. I'm thinking, I am one already. I am one. Born here, raised here, birth certificate, Indian status, half Indigenous. So I wear modern day clothes. I live in a house. I still practice my ways. So where does she get in her mind that I'm not a Canadian citizen? If I'm not Canadian, are you still implying the old ways of the Indian Act where if I have my status card, I'm still a primitive Indian? I guess to her, I'm a primitive Indian. And I find that troubling because out of the 524 years the Europeans have been here, they're still trying to impose hardship on First Nations peoples. To this day, they still try to trample on our indigenous human rights. And I know a lot of natives do feel that that the status card is a link to their indigenous rights, It is not. You can be a non status person and still have full entitlement to your treaty rights. Those are rights promised by the Crown. And your Indigenous rights are also your human rights. So, by her saying that, I'm not human. I'm pretty sure I am. Canada has had a long history of neglect toward First Nations peoples. And everyone, I've heard that get over it so many times. You know, I would love to get over it. I would. But seeing as it's still happening, why don't you tell all the other ethnic groups in the world who have been through genocide, assimilation, and forced relocation to get over it? You can go to a UN meeting, a United Nations meeting, and tell every indigenous person from every corner of the planet to get over it. The day you do that, there you go. I am honestly sick and tired of hearing the get over it. I am the product of an indigenous woman and an indigenous man. And the fact that I live every day with the assumption that I'm not native by people who don't even know me, or the fact that I'm a half breed, which is still not even the most pleased term to use, is degrading. It shouldn't matter my race. I'm a human being, people. I'm a human being. My status card, the only reason why I have one is because it helps me afford the things that I can't afford. The tax exemption, I don't care for. I don't. It's a perk, but it's not the thing that's gonna. It's. I never use it. Here in Winnipeg, there's no place in Winnipeg except for a gas station. Maybe you can use your status card. But you don't need a status card to show pride toward where you're from. And this is another topic that I can't get over is the LGBTQ issues that mix with indigenous issues for me as a person. Because I'm two-spirit, so yes, I'm gay. And I'm a native. Two hated groups by most people. I'm not saying everyone. People accept me, people hate me. It's human. No one's gonna like everybody. But the thing is that it's Creator made us all unique. We are made in the image of the Creator. We're meant to be creative. We're meant to be different. But we're all part of the same life cycle. We all walk the same earth. We're only separated by water. Every continent is connected to each other. That's what people seem to forget. And for those who still think that natives are nothing but are all those stereotypes like welfare hogs and drinkers, druggies, I'll tell you something. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I don't smoke. I don't live on a reserve. And I live on assistance, but that's only because right now it is impossible for me to get a job. I've tried numerous times for 3 years to get a job. It's not been working out. But I don't call that a part of my race. I call that because the economy is hard. And I've been called more names than you can imagine. It's sent me to tears times. It's caused me depression. And I still have that depression. It's just not as heavy as it used to be, but it's still there, very much so. And I get anxiety attacks over it. But it's a reality. And I may all seem randy dandy in my videos, but my everyday life is not as easy as it looks. I live in Winnipeg. It was dubbed the most racist city in Canada. I don't technically believe that, but I do believe that there are issues that we need to face and that we need to address. And it's weird though, because the only ones who can see these issues are the newcomers, the fresh immigrants, the fresh new Canadians, I should say, the new Canadians. They have seen this racism toward us, and they've seen it to themselves. But I hate to say it, and I'm being honest, the non-indigenous and the non-immigrant, the non born here's, like, I'm just gonna say it, the whites. Most of the conservative whites don't want to see the struggles because it is not their problem. I know people. I have nothing against race. I was brought up to respect every race, everywhere, and I'm pointing out my views. And if someone wants to backlash me, go ahead. But I actually have done all my research. I've read the treaties that I needed to read. I know parts of the Indian Act that I can back up my claims with, and I'm I'm not saying I'm a genius, but I know my stuff. And I will not sit idly while someone on my page, if someone comes across my page and calls me a liar and a racist. You do not get to call me racist unless you have lived what I've lived through, unless you've lived what my ancestors have lived through. Because you think it's bad if you're a settler, and if you think it's bad, you did not, you, unless your ancestors have lived through almost 600 years of cultural oppression, genocide, and assimilation, you are in no position to tell us to get over it. Until the day I do not the only, and I've heard people say that they wish people could walk in their shoes. I would not wish that hardship on anybody. Never. Ever. No one deserves that treatment. And the suicides and Aboriginal suicides here hurt my heart because our Indigenous people deserve so much. I'm not talking about handles, I'm talking about decent human compassion and love to help one another. I'm not a I'm not a hippie. I don't believe in kumbaya. I believe in respect. Respect is what keeps people together. Understanding is what keeps people together. Humility is the foundation of human beings, to be humble, to make sure that when we meet somebody who is not of our color, background, country, whatever the case is, that we respect them. It's not about where you're from, it's about how you come across. If you're humble and respectful, we could be the best of friends. But I will not stand by and watch you idly insult my ancestors. My ancestors fought every second for me to be here. They went through residential school, they went through genocide, they went through cultural suppression. My culture at some point was actually illegalized. I would, I would, I'm not saying I would love you, but I bet you $1,000,000. No, I bet you beadwork, just kidding. I bet you so much that no European, British, French, German, Russian, not, I wouldn't say German, mainly Russian, British, and French, had their culture illegalized, had their hair put on bounties, had derogatory names for them like redskin, wagon burner, heathen, savage, and then told that their culture, that their spirituality was demonic. or the fact that if you're in residential school, you had sexual, physical, and emotional and mental abuse, God knows how many times, to the point where you're too scared to even speak your own language. And you're not released until you're 18 years old. Some kids would go until as early as 3. They wouldn't even leave until they were 18. They would not be allowed to leave until they learned how to be a white man. So I don't want to hear anymore. Get over it. My ancestors that fought so hard to preserve my way of life is how I honor them. I'm not going to play a blame game. Personally, I don't play blame games. These are facts that happened. These are not blame games. These are facts. And yes, people have denied the genocide. Then you tell me why so many millions of First Nations peoples died over 500 years. Can you tell me how they died of malnutrition, of abuse, of food annihilation, of racial discrimination? There was actually a time when my people had a bounty on their head, and the Native Americans in the States the same way. And my culture was so illegalized, you could get either arrested or shot for having a powwow or leaving the reservation. And speaking your own language at some point was illegal. To this day, we are grasping with our teeth to speak our language. I am the recipient of cultural genocide because I cannot speak Mi'kmaq, Cree, Anishinaabe, and Blackfoot. Because the Canadian government made it possible for me to be denied my Indigenous rights as a First Nations young man, as a two-spirited youth. Can you tell me why my language is not in my vocabulary? Can you tell me why we cannot speak our languages anymore? I'll tell you why. Because the, the Catholic Church and the Canadian government worked together to ensure my languages, the languages of my ancestors, were so pagan, they weren't even allowed to say hello. They would get abused and beaten if they spoke any word of their language. And so when people say, oh, that isn't true, that didn't happen, I'm sorry for my language, but bullshit. There are unmarked graves and on the lands where the residential schools were, where there are empty caskets because they could not find the children. Where do you find the justice in that? Where do you find the excuse to murder a child because of their racial difference? Their religious difference? Where do you find that excuse? There is no excuse. You're just a monster. I remember somebody at a powwow asking me, do I speak my language? No, I do not. And you know what they said? I thought all Indians could speak their language. Guess I got the short end of the stick. Like I said, I am the product of cultural genocide and assimilation. My parents, no, my mom could speak a little bit, but my biological father, nope, he doesn't know a single bit of his language. So, like I said, when I'm told to get over it, what does that entitle? All I think is, how dare you? I bet, I bet if you could speak your own language, you would just hop over the moon to be able to speak your own language. And I heavily respect those who can. You guys have no idea how much I look up to you. And as for dancing, gay people are still having a hard time coming out of the closet after I don't even know how long. And I'll tell you something. My jingle dress story, because I never told anyone this. When I first started dancing, it was hard enough as it was being who I am. And one powwow I went to, there was a jingle dress dancer there. It's a little hard for me to talk about it. Um, she told me because of my gender, I shouldn't even be allowed to step in a jingle dress. She told me I was disrespecting it by the highest accord. And me, feeling like I actually found something like that gave me peace in life, that gave me the ultimate sense of being, was told I couldn't do it because of who I am. There's no words to describe the stab in the heart that feels, especially coming from people, from your own people. One person made me feel that way. But to this day, I'm fighting for my right to be in this circle because I belong in this circle. Every walk of life belongs in the same circle. And unfortunately, I'm going to say it, some white people don't get that still. They don't understand Native American spirituality. The thing is, Native American spirituality is not religious. It's the one thing on earth that connects every molecule of sacredness to all walks and forms of life. Every little shred of grass, every leaf on a tree, rock in the pond, every gust of wind with sand, and it has a spirit, has a life. I know that sounds like the song from Pocahontas, but that's how I feel. And it's 100% true. And I'll tell you one thing. During this cultural genocide, but you guys didn't know this, there were actually tribes in the states that went extinct because of all the killings. Yeah, but you didn't know that. A few tribes in states were wiped out clean by the white settlers. Now the non-native white people today, some of them, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say about 80% of them, which is a pretty good number, are open to First Nations people. They accept them. And nowadays, a lot of natives are intermingling with the whites, which is it's been going on forever. No surprise there. Look at me. So, I've been told to keep it real on my page, and I'm doing that. If I lose subscribers, that's fine, because I feel as if I can be genuine, I feel good that I'm doing the right thing. YouTube has had a hard time accepting people with opinions because they don't want people to get offended. Well, newsflash. It is my human right to be honest, to be opinionated, to be true to my heart, my spirit. And if someone who is religious or racially sensitive, too bad. You live with 7 billion people on this earth, get used to it. It's gonna happen. So, I'm gonna close this vlog before I blabber on because it's already been 25 minutes. So, um, I implore you guys, just bear with me and please just accept my page. I actually don't ask for anything. Just, just do what you want to do. Enjoy YouTube, enjoy your day. I hope you have a most blessed day. Creator makes life and every breath of the day sacred. Cherish every day and honor your family. Honor your loved ones. Honor your friends. Honor every breath. Honor every time you wake up because it's a gift. We are borrowing this life from Creator. Make it so that he knows or she knows or whatever you want to call Creator, that they are aware that you honor their gift to you, to be able to breathe, to be able to see, touch, hear, and smell. These are all gifts that we are just borrowing. Our bodies are a vessel. Our spirits are eternal. They're all gifts. Our people